much for joining us. We've got a very special project in mind for you this week. It's right here on the counter next to me. And we are going to make this little welcome fall wall hanging. It's small, so it's a very small version compared to the one that we did a couple months ago for the spring. Spring has passed. Summer is almost past. Now we're looking at the fall. So this is a pint-sized version of a wall hanging. It's about, what is it, around 31 centimeters tall, well, 34 centimeters wide by 44 centimeters tall, or 13.5 inches by 17.5 inches. And that does not include the little tabs. We're going to do the entire thing. We are going to work Monday through Thursday this week. So we're breaking this project up into 4 days. And we are going to go for about an hour every day. Maybe there'll be a little bit of overage. We're going to do the first day today. We're going to work on the bottom. We're going to build it from the bottom up. So today will be the imagery, which I will talk a little bit more about in a moment. Tomorrow we're going to work on the word that says fall. Wednesday we'll be working on the top, which says welcome. And then Thursday we'll be working on the border and adding the little tabs. So a nice 4-day project. And it's more of that Fair Isle style mosaic kind of crochet that we did last year as the blanket. There is a back side and a right side. So there's a right and a wrong side to this project. Mr. InStitches, thank you. I will get to that in just a second. I just want to quickly finish my intro because we are using words. And words, of course, only go one way. So there is a left and right-handedness to this, which I will be explaining as we go. We will have the graphs up on the screen as we work. And the pattern is included in the Etsy shop. And just a quick note about the pattern, it's not only just the wall hanging pattern and graph, golly gee, thank you, Joanne, but it also includes 3 other files. So it's a massive listing. It's got 4 files in it, this whole thing, plus our Fair Isle style pumpkin jack-o'-lantern pattern and graph, plus our Acorn pattern and graph, plus image substitution instructions, because we made it so that you can substitute any one of the Fair Isle style little images that we did last year. There's like 40 of them in here if you want to change it up. So there's instructions on how to do that for this project. That's all in the pattern, and we are going to explain that briefly. We polled the family before we got going for the first few hours this morning to see if they wanted us to switch up the pattern from the little leaves across the bottom, so a little leaf, maple leaf, little leaf, and change up the middle, and the acorn one. So we will actually be doing an acorn. So you can see this. I will explain this a little bit as we go, but we're also going to do our acorn pattern. So this is going to include the little leaves and an acorn in the middle. Just perfect for welcoming the fall. I love the acorn. So great. Thank you very much to the family for voting on that. Before I get into the materials required and the supplies, I would like to thank a few people. In particular, I would like to thank Nico for gifting a membership earlier today. Thank you so much, Nico. We really appreciate that. A big thank you to Lynette for a fabulous super chat. Good morning. Happy for alive, says Lynette. Thank you so much. A big thank you to Joanna's Crochet and Animal Sanctuary for gifting a membership, and to Lucy H for gifting a membership. Thank you so much. We've also had a couple people pick up the pattern at the shop so far. I'd like to thank Joya and Sarah for picking up the pattern. Also for Sue, also who picked up the pattern. So thank you guys so much. We really, really, really deeply appreciate the support. It is more necessary now than it ever has been as things continue to go a little crazy in the YouTube world. So we really are so grateful that you could be here with us today. And thank you so much for your support. So that said, let's get into the project. You are going to want a 5.5 millimeter hook. This is also known as the I or the 9. It's the same hook we used for the 2023 calendar blanket. In fact, it's pretty much the hook I use for all my calendar blankets. So nice, common, familiar hook, nice and comfortable to use. Pair of scissors, yarn needle. You may want to use spools for this project. If you've never used spools or you don't have spools, you can make your own like me. I'm a cheap girl. I love to make my own supplies when I can. We have tutorials on A, how to make these, and B, how to use them. And we've got links to those in the description box down below. And if they're not there, we'll make sure they will be at the end of today's live stream. And if you pick up any of our Fair Isle style or our mosaic style patterns, the template on how to make your own spools is included in the pattern. So if you've never made your own and you'd like the template, that's also included in the pattern. And I'm going to show you how to quickly wind them up today, depending on how much or what colors you're going to use. Let's talk amounts. The entire project, so the entire thing, the whole wall hanging, colors, background, border, tabs included, you're going to need around 225 yards in total. Now the lion's share of that is going to be your color A, which is your background color. You're going to run about 130 yards of that. You can opt to do row 1 of your border in the same color as your background, or change it. So this is great if you kind of run out of one color or you think you're going to play yarn chicken. You can change it so you can make your border 2 different colors or 1 color. You can use whatever color you want in your border. I just repeated, for example, in this one I used this pretty variegated yarn here. I repeated it for the border row 2. You can use any color you want for your tabs. Once again, I used my A color because I had a lot of it, so I was just sort of using that. But you can do whatever you want. If you want your tabs to blend in with your border, you could do the same color as your border. You have a lot of choices here. The actual colors required for the imagery, so your little leaf, your big leaf, or your acorn, your letters, you need very little of that. In the green, the darker green of the leaf, just 6 yards total. The light green, 3 yards, when we're splitting that amount in half to do the 2 leaves that are here. The main central image takes about 15 yards total. So whether it's 1 color for a leaf or 2 colors for the acorn, it's about 15 yards total. So really, you can use whatever scrap yarn you might have on hand. Again, you need around 12 yards, 10 to 12 yards for the word fall, and another 10 to 12 yards for the word welcome. So not a lot. I'm used a size 4 medium weight acrylic for this particular version, and the one I'm going to be doing along with you guys this week, I'm going to be using wool. So I've got some absolutely gorgeous wool from one of my favorite Canadian wool creators, Briggs & Little, and they're located in New Brunswick, and I've got a lot of their wool in my collection. I've decided to use it. It's also a size 4 medium weight, so it's the same weight category. It's wool, and I don't typically wear wool like this all that much, so I thought it would make a beautiful wall hanging, and it would be kind of appropriate because it's cozy and woolly for the cooler weathers ahead. So that's what I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using wool, but I did use acrylic. You can use whatever fiber you are comfortable with. This isn't a fiber special or specific project, so whatever fiber you like. And let me see what else. Oh, to hang it, you're going to want a stick or a piece of doweling, around 20 inches long, maybe half an inch in diameter. So really nothing too big. I literally grabbed a stick from the backyard because I kind of liked the rustic nature of that. But if you've got doweling, you can use that too. And that, of course, is to hang it up afterwards. So there we go. We've covered it all, I think. Mr. InStitches, are we all ready to go here? I think I've covered all the... We had a milestone. Oh! Goodness me, yes we do. A milestone from Lucy. Hey Lucy! Lucy's been a member for 17 months. Thank you, Lucy. She says, I'm just finishing off a falling leaves blanket for my son to take to university in just under 3 weeks. Holy cow. Yes, back to school and off to school for a lot of people. It's a very exciting time of year. So, and if I think Canada has the day off today. This is our last long weekend of the summer, and I think you guys in America, you guys have got the Labor Day weekend too, I think. So if we're all on holiday today, that would be just peachy keen. All right, this is what we're doing. Let's talk about winding spools. We are going to be using the Acorn image in place of the big maple leaf today. Maureen, thank you so much for picking up the pattern. I've got some colors chosen for that. So for the brown, or the darker part, or the bottom part of my acorn, I'm going to go with this darker brown color. Or I should say, I guess in reverse. I've got a dark brown for the top and a lighter brown for the bottom. Trying to decide which I'm going to do. Should I do the bottom dark brown and the top light brown, or the bottom light brown and the top dark brown? I'm not sure. I've got plenty of these little spools. I made about 6 or 8 of them for the calendar blanket, so I've just had a couple here, and I wanted to explain you really only need 3 spools in total for this project, because you don't need a spool for the amount of light green yarn for the highlights in the leaf pattern. And if you don't want to use the highlights, you don't need any light green at all. But you only need about a yard and a half for the light green per leaf. So you don't really need to put that on a spool if you don't want to. You really just need a spool for this leaf, dark green, for the other leaf, dark green, and for your piece in the middle. The acorn is done in it's two colors, but you use all of one color first and then you switch to the other color. So you can just use the same spool throughout. And that's it. So here we go. I think, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to use the dark brown for the top. If you pick up an acorn in the wild, chat, let me know in the chat, do you feel like the light brown is the nut and the dark brown is the cap, or the dark brown is the nut and the light brown is the cap? Sing out. I would love to hear your opinion. I'm going to do whatever you guys think it looks like the best. Laurel, thank you, Laurel. Laurel's been a member for 18 months. Laurel's here with a membership milestone. Says it's so great to see these live videos. Thank you so much for all the work you do to bring us these, Mr. InStitches and Jayda. Happy stitching. Thank you, Laurel. Yes, we're really, really pleased to see you all here. Light is the nut. Yes, light brown top, dark bottom. Okay, that's from Hen. Dark brown but light brown cap, dark brown bottom, light brown cap, dark brown on top, light brown on the bottom. So we've dark cap, light body, light brown nut, dark brown top. So I guess, I mean, oak trees do vary from one region to the next, so it's very possible that their nuts change too. If anybody does a quick Google search of the internet, what do you see if you do a Google image search? Dark cap, light body. Well, I'm not sure what. I think I kind of like both. I like the light body and the dark cap. So maybe I will do, I might just hold that one off. Dark brown nut, light brown cap. Dark brown nut. Dark brown is the cap in real acorns. Seeing it both ways on Google. I Googled and they are all different. Dark top, light nut. Okay, you know what? I think because my original picture shows the original image that we did was a lighter brown nut and a dark brown cap, because that's kind of what I'm familiar with seeing. I think I'm going to go with that. So I'm going to just put this aside. I will make this the cap of my nut, and I'm going to wind some yarn, about 12 yards. So if you've ever, you can measure it out, or you can hold this at your nose, or hold one set of fingers at your nose and pull the yarn to the length of your arm, and that's roughly a yard. And you want about 8 yards of color for the bottom of your nut. That's being safe. Oh my goodness. Tracy, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. I'm just quickly unraveling some yarn here. There we go. I should think that would be enough. And then I'm going to put my little, these are, I used 2 pieces of just kind of candy box cardboard held together as I cut out my little template, and they lasted a whole year. So now I'm just going to wind up that color around my spool. And once again, you really only need 3 spools for this. You need to put your nut color on a spool, and once you're finished with the nut color, you can rewind that spool with the nut cap color, and you only need the other 2 spools for the dark green part of the leaves. You can make your leaves whatever color you want. And the leaves themselves, so the dark green leaves, really it's about 3 yards of dark green per leaf. So you want to put about 3 yards of dark green on each of your other little spools, and have about 1.5 yards of your lighter green or whatever accent color you want to use on standby, just to kind of work it in as you go. It's not a lot of yarn, so you don't really need to put it on a spool. You don't need to have that many spools kind of clanking around behind you as you work. And of course you want to pick yourself out a nice background color. I've got an off-white that I'm going to be using. You do not need to put the off-white or your background color on a spool. It's massive, and you're going to be using it throughout, so you do not require a spool for that. The spools are really just for your accent color. So that's my acorn bottom, that's my acorn top, and now I've got these 2 colors here for my leaves. This is the darker green. It's actually kind of a tweed. It's got a little bit of like gray in it, which I thought was kind of nice. And this is going to be my highlight color. So I'm just going to take these apart. Taking apart, I'm really taking my, I'm going to rewind these probably after the stream. Just so that they don't get all tangled up on me, but I don't need too much. I love these. This is so old school. They're tied in a knot. So I'm going to put about 3 yards of this darker green on each of those little spools, and then I'll have a little bit of that lighter green on hand to do the accent piece. And that way we're all kind of on the same page. All right, so let me just measure out quickly 3 yards. And that's the other side. All right. Let's get this out of the way. Unwinding. Oh, this smells so good. I wish you guys could all smell this. I love the smell of real wool. It's such a treat. I don't get to use it very often. And if you have an allergy to wool, I am deeply sorry about that for you, because it is such a treat to be able to use this. I am very fortunate. I do not have a problem with wool. Must be my Scottish roots. All right, I'm going to measure out just a little bit more than 3 yards, and that'll be enough for leaf number 1. And I want to just anchor one little end there and then wind up my spool. Ashley's asking where the link for this particular pattern is. It should be, it's in the Etsy shop. I think our Etsy shop link is in the description box somewhere. Usually is anyway. You'll find it over in the Etsy shop, and it'll be right up top. There's that one, and I'll do the same thing with number 2. Now, where did I put that end? Today's live stream, tomorrow's live stream, all of the live streams will be sitting up on the channel, available to watch later. So if you have to pop out, totally understand. You can pop back in later today and you can see the whole thing. And of course, it's nice. If you give it a couple of, I think about half an hour after it finishes, the live chat should replay. So if you also want to watch it with the live chat replay, that is usually available about 20 minutes to half an hour after the live stream finishes. I will definitely be rewinding all of this yarn later today. There we go. Don't want to create too much of a tangle. Untangling wool can be really annoying. And I just had an end. Where did it go? There it is. So I need about 3 yards. I'm going to make sure I've got about 3.5. And then I can put this lovely pile of green aside. I will rewind that later. There we go. And then I'll just need one little bit of light green. Okay. Yes, using the back of a chair, Sandra, is a great idea to keep it from getting tangled. If you don't have one of those, what are those things called? They kind of like, you unroll a shank of yarn or a hank of yarn, and then you kind of put it over one of those, looks like an umbrella kind of thing. I don't have one of those. Sandy, thank you for picking up the pattern. Thank you so much. But I usually unwind it, and if you don't have the back of a chair handy, a husband's arms are useful too. Okay, and a little bit of green. This is just a little bit of green for the highlight on the little leaves. You can make your leaves any color you want, and you don't actually have to include the highlight if you don't want to. I just kind of like it because it makes me think of the veins that I see in a leaf, which seem to really stand out this time of year. Oh, that is so fun to unwind that. Hello, Georgie! Georgie's in the house. Georgie with a membership milestone. Georgie's been a member for 35 months. Goodness me, thank you, Georgie. Says, I gotta go back to driving school. Oh, driving a school bus tomorrow. Enjoy seeing Jayda and Mr. and everyone else have a bunch of whips and a Swift. Thank you. It's called a Swift. Thank you, Georgie. Georgie with the word. It's a Swift. Yes, I do not have a yarn Swift, but the back of a chair is quite a handy thing to use in lieu of. Goodness me, Joyce, thank you so much for picking up the pattern. All right, let me just try to make this a little neater than the last one. I'm going to get about a yard and a half. So that is the little vine detail for one leaf. And oh my goodness gracious, Nico! Thank you, Nico! Thank you for picking up the pattern. Thank you so much, guys. And another yard and a half or so for the second one. Okay, so that's all my pretty yarn. That's the wool taken care of. I have been collecting some of this wool. I've had it in my collection for years at this point. And when I say years, I mean like 20 years. So I'm really excited about being able to use it finally. Have we got a birthday person? Happy birthday to Ashley. Happy birthday to anybody who's got a birthday this week. September is such a lovely month. All right. I've got, let's make sure here. This is the main color I'm going to be using. It is this lovely off-white color. I'm going to be very, very daring, and I'm going to unravel it as I work, which will do two things. One, it'll keep me kind of from crocheting really, really quickly. And two, it'll kind of force me to slow down and enjoy the process, or at least that's the plan. So here we go. I'm going to get some stuff out of the way. We need our hooks. I'm going to put this out of the way too, just to kind of give myself some space. Actually, I might just put that up here. Mr. InStitches, if you could please fire up the graph. We have separated the graph that we will be working on. It's the whole wall hanging. We've separated it into three so that we can work on it sort of a chunk at a time as we go throughout the week. And since we have the family voted on switching out the maple leaf for the acorn, so what you're seeing is the insert, how this basically looks, but with the acorn in it instead. Now, like I said, if you've got any of our other Fair Isle style patterns, including any of the ones we did for our live streams or for the entire calendar blanket last year, any one of those will fit in this space because it operates on the same 20 stitches by 11 row scenario, and the entire wall hanging is 40 stitches across. So you could technically do 2 repeats of one of these, or like I'm doing today, a little leaf, the main image, and then the little leaf repeated. So here we go. We're going to take our background color, which is color A, and if you're following along with the graph, super simple. If you're right-handed, you start on the right-handed side for row 1. If you're left-handed, you start on the left-hand side of the graph for row 1. So lefties, you're always on the opposite side of where the row number is indicated. Right-handed, you're always on the same side of the row number indicated. Most of the first chunk of this wall hanging is mirror image, except for the top of the acorn, the little stem. So it's not super important which direction you come at it for the first little bit, but it is good to get into the habit of knowing which side you're on, because it does become very important when we get into the words. The first row, our foundation row, we're going to chain 41 to get going. And I'm just going to make a little bit more space down here. There is 41. All right, I will quickly count because I definitely want to make sure I have 41 chains. I have 41 chains. All right. 41 chains is what you need every single row in the pattern. You will have 40 stitches. So we start with 41. We are using the double crochet stitch pretty much exclusively throughout. We're going to double crochet into the third chain from the hook. So you skip chain 1, chain 2, find the third chain, double crochet into it, and that 2 chains that's left over here at the end counts as a double crochet. So the chain 2 at the end of every row counts as a double crochet. That's why if you chain 41, double crochet into the third chain, double crochet into every single chain all the way back, you will have 40 stitches, including that chain 2, in your row. So when you're working this, don't forget when you get to the end of a row, you've got to find the top of that chain 2 and double crochet into it. You don't want to miss it, otherwise it'll throw off your stitch count. And we're going to double crochet in every single chain all the way back. If I sound like I'm yelling, I guess Mr. InStitches is sort of fiddling with the sound. I'll try not to scream in everybody's ear.
I think that mic is a lot more sensitive because it's right closer to you.
Oh dear, okay. All right, well, I will just not bellow, I guess. All right, so like I said, we're going to split this project into 4 days. We've got the graph itself is split into 3. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be focused on the graph, and Thursday will be the border and the tabs. So however long it takes us, we figured, we're going to try to aim for about an hour each day. Today will probably go a little longer because we were talking about materials and getting started. But once we're kind of up and running, we should be able to confine much of this to about an hour. But we're not going to rush. And then we will be all wrapped up Thursday, because Friday, goodness me, it's calendar blanket week. So this Friday will be the next installment in our Granny Square blanket, Granny's Magical Cupboard. Looking forward to that. Definitely making sure that I do not create too much of a tangled mess here. All right, so that is row 1 complete. Row 1 of the pattern is just straight double crochet in each stitch all the way across with color A, because we are establishing the bottom, and I'm unraveling a bit of this mess here. There we go. Okay, and just to kind of catch you up, so ignoring the border row, this is row 1 down here. We've just done that. If you compare it against the chart, it is row 1 across the bottom. You see all 40 stitches indicated there. Row 1 right-handed, you would start here. If you're left-handed, you would start on the other side. Row 1 is all double crochet in color A, as is row 2. So we have 2 rows of just solid background color to kind of establish the shape. At the end of every row, you chain 2. In fact, at the end of every row, you will be chaining 2 with color A. So there is no messing around with colors at the end or the beginning of a row. We kind of designed it so you wouldn't have to worry about that. All the color changing happens inside the main body of the piece. So chain 2 with color A and turn at the end of every single row. Now because the chain 2 counts as a double crochet, this first stitch right here is accounted for. That chain 2 is using it. So you always skip that first stitch and work a double crochet into the next stitch, and then when you get all the way across, you got to make sure you find the chain 2 at the end of the row and double crochet into the top of that, because it counts as a stitch. That way you will be assured of always having 40 stitches in every single row. So chain 2, turn, double crochet in every single stitch all the way across with color A again, because rows 1 and 2 of the pattern are all color A. So we're establishing the bottom of the wall hanging, and I'm going to continue to very gingerly pull the yarn out of this lovely great big pile of wool here. I will definitely be rewinding that at the end of today's live stream. Get a little bit more yarn going here. There's a definite change when I find between crocheting with acrylic and crocheting with wool. I don't find it terribly different feeling on the hook, and it does feel, of course, a little bit different in the fingers, but I love the sponginess. I feel like wool has sort of a bouncy sponginess to it. So while I'm working, it doesn't feel like it's hanging heavily underneath my hands. It feels like it's kind of bouncing along on the air. All right, I'm just getting to the end of row 2, and I want to make sure that I don't miss the top of the turning chains. So I find the top of the turning chains, get my hook in there, double crochet, and I will have 40 stitches all the way across at the end of row 2. So that's 40 stitches in row 1, 40 stitches in row 2, and I'm just going to avert a knot here. There we go. Aha. All right. In row 3 is where things start to get interesting. We are going to begin to use our spools in row 3. Very simple at first. There's just one sort of like little one little introduction of each color, and I'm really hoping I don't make a mess of this. I have this one strange loop that keeps getting in the way. I'm not entirely sure why, but I will do my best to avoid it being a gigantic disaster here. There we go. That'll stave it off for a while. Okay. So we will be introducing the bottom of our leaf. So this little guy right here. The bottom of our acorn. So if you look in our graph, we'll be introducing the bottom of the acorn. So whichever color you want to use as the bottom of your acorn, I'm going to use the lighter color. We'll have 1 stitch in the dark green, 2 stitches in the beige, and 1 stitch in the dark green. And that means we'll be employing all 3 of our spools for row 3. If you're left-handed, it looks the same going left or right-handed, but I do recommend that from here on out you pay very close attention to which side of the graph you're on. So if it's an odd row, then right-handed starts at the right, left-handed starts on the left. If it's an even row, right-handed starts on the left, left-handed starts on the right. So just keep that in mind. Whatever handedness you are, make sure you're following the graph from the correct direction, just so you don't end up with anything going backwards. We chain 2 with color A at the end of every row and turn. Nico has gifted another membership. Thank you so much, Nico. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm going to try and free up a little bit more of my yarn here. Not quite sure why this seems to want to knot up on me. There we go. Okay, and here we go. So I'm just going to switch over to this. It looks a bit messy over here. All right. The first 5 stitches of the row are all A. A is also the turning chain. That chain 2 counts as double crochet, so we're only going to double crochet into each of the next 4 stitches with A. And if you're comfortable following the graphs, like we did last year, you can zoom on ahead, but I'm just going to kind of call out the stitches as we go. Remember that before you change colors, the stitch before you change colors, you only ever work half of it with the current colors. So with A, you begin the double crochet and work half of it. Just set it down. We're going to get our green going now. So I'm going to get green for one of my leaves going. I'm going to start with a slip knot using that green. I'm going to let that tail dangle, and I'll be weaving in my tails later. I don't want that to be too tight, but I put that slip knot on my hook, and then I finish that stitch with that slip knot. So the stitch is now complete. You can tighten up on that A stitch. So the stitch is complete. It's all the right color. It's all A, but you completed it with the new color, and now you're ready to create the next stitch using your green or your leaf color. When you are not using A, you need to carry it. So some of the colors get carried inside the range of the image on the graph, but you always are carrying A because you need A all the way across. So we are going to work 1 double crochet using our new color, but because there's only 1 stitch in that color and we change right back to A, we're only going to work half of it. We're going to drop that color because that's all we need from that spool to begin. And we're going to finish that stitch with A. So you can see, so I'm going to tighten up on that a little bit, that whole stitch is the correct color. It's all the new dark green. But we've changed back to A to finish the stitch so that we are now set up to continue working in A. We're dropping that color, so I'm going to just wind up whatever's left and snap it into place and just let that spool dangle because I don't need it anymore for the rest of this row. So in between that stitch and the bottom of our acorn, oh my goodness gracious, sign in with Apple user. I don't know who you are, but thank you so much for picking up a pattern. There are 13 stitches between this stitch and the bottom of our acorn. So I'm just going to double check that on the graph again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. Yes, there are 13 stitches in A. So here we go. We're going to double crochet 13 times with A. And when we get to the 13th stitch, we're only going to work half of it with A before we switch to the new color for the acorn. And once we get the color pattern established in this row 3 of the entire pattern, it'll be a lot easier to figure out where your stitches need to go, and the counting will be a little easier to do because you'll always have a visual reference of that color.
Is the pattern on the t-shirt up top?
Yes, it is. Yeah, the wall hanging pattern, which includes 4 files, it's a big listing. It's up top in the shop. It's one of the featured listings. Oh, and I should mention it's also on sale. So it, along with all of our Fair Isle style graphs, are all on sneaky sale for this entire week as a gigantic thank you, and sort of a please feel free to pop in and pick up any patterns that you don't already have in that collection. And it's all week, so thank you very, very much, everybody who already has popped in and picked up a pattern. So that's number 10. Okay, coming up on my 13th stitch in A. So I'm going to work the first half of it. I'm going to get my Acorn nut color. I'm going to start with a slip knot. I don't want it to be too big, so I'm going to put it on my hook and tighten it, but not too much. I'm going to finish, golly me, Ashley, thank you. Thank you so much, Ashley, for picking up the pattern. I'm going to finish this stitch with the new color. So once again, the whole stitch is in color A, which is perfect. We finished it with the new color, which is actually C. So this is B, this is C, but we're just going to call them by the color name. So Acorn bottom for now. And now I'm going to work 2 double crochets using the Acorn color. I'm carrying A, which means I work over top of it, and I'll weave in my tails later. The second stitch using the Acorn color is the stitch just before I switch colors again, so I only work the first half of it, drop that color, pick up A, I was carrying it, so it's in exactly the place I need it, and finish that stitch. So there's 2 stitches in that Acorn color. I'm done with the Acorn color for now. That's all I needed for this row, so I'm going to wind it back up, and it can just dangle. Now this is mirror image, so there's another 13 stitches in A before we get to leaf number 2, and we'll be engaging our 3rd and final spool of the row. Looks like I need to give myself a little more leash with the white here, so I'm going to unravel a little bit of this. Definitely avoiding knots. Yes, I think this microphone is just closer to my face, so that's probably why it's a little bit louder. I need to keep that in mind. Sorry if I'm yelling, everybody. Crocus! Hello, Crocus! Crocus has been a member for 19 months. Thank you so much, Crocus. Crocus has a membership milestone. She says, Jayda, I'm babysitting. Missing your cheerful crochet. Babysitting's fun, especially when the baby's having a nap. You can get a little reading in. All right, I'm on to stitch number 13 with A. I'm only working half of it, and now I need to get my 3rd spool, also a dark green color for a leaf, engaged. I create a slip knot, slip it on my hook, not too tight, finish the stitch with it, ba-bum, and then I'm going to work 1 double crochet, or at least half of it, with that new color. I'm working over top of A, I'm carrying A. I work half of that stitch with the new color, drop it, pick up A, finish it again, so I've got a full stitch in the new color, but I finished with A, and that sets me up to do the rest of the row. There will be 5 stitches left. I'm going to do all 5 stitches before I go back and just tighten up that first spool. Remember, the last stitch of every row is in the top of the turning chains, so don't miss it. It can be easy, but don't miss it. All right, you'll have 40 stitches in that row. I'm just going to make sure that this guy is all neatly spooled back up. So we've got all 3 spools now involved in this project. Every row will have 40 stitches in it. You've got 1 spool for your first leaf. You've got a spool now to build that acorn, and you have a second spool for your second leaf. So there's 2 spools using that green color, which is why it's good to kind of keep them separate. And you won't be carrying any of these spools all the way across. They're only going to get carried within the position of the image that you're making. So the little leaf will get kind of carried up, and these guys will get carried sort of just within the context of their little image. You're going to want to have your leaf vein or your secondary leaf color for your little detail, the vein of the leaf. You're going to want those handy because they're going to get engaged now in row 4 of the pattern. Kathy, thank you so much for picking up a pattern. I'm going to have a sip of my tea.
That Apple user might have been Ashley. I'm not sure.
Oh, really? Oh, I saw Ashley's name. Unless there were 2 Ashleys, but I mean, what are the odds of that?
Oh, okay.
All right, I'm going to get myself free up a little bit more of that yarn. We're definitely going to be running over the hour mark today, but that's okay. Nobody needs to be in a giant rush, and it's nice to do this in real time with everybody. All right, at the end of row 3, we chain 2 and turn. Row 4, right-handed, you are looking at the left-hand side of the graph. Left-handed, you are looking at the right-hand side of the graph. Row 4 is also a mirror image row, so don't worry too much if you kind of get a little bit confused, but do try to get into the habit of looking at the graph from the correct position, depending on your handedness. Hello, Krista. Krista's been a member for 15 months. Thank you, Krista, with a membership milestone. Says, today marks 7 years subscribed to this channel. Holy cow. Thank you. Mister, I have pie for my snack. Lucky Krista. Yum. All right. Row 4, here we go. We start with 3 stitches in A. The first stitch is actually the chain 2, so it's already accounted for. We skip that stitch, and we work 2 more stitches in A, but stitch number 3 is the stitch before the color change, so we only work half of it. And now we unspool for our leaf. So there's going to be a reach. We're going to be working over A. You're going to take your B color and just finish off that stitch. Don't pull too tightly on that new color because you want to be able to work over top of it, and you don't want it to get kind of too tight. You don't want it to be kind of pinch anything. We're going to work 2 stitches. So remember, you're working over top of A. You're also working over top of that little itty bitty reach, but this will make it disappear. Work the first half of that stitch. Now you can see that it's pulled it up. It will not show. It's nice and neat and tidy. Just put that aside for now. And here we go. We're going to break in our little highlight color. Just so you know, this is the most complicated color changing part of the entire project. Once we get to the words, you're only handling a secondary color. So it'll be an A-B scenario. This is the busiest part of the project, but it's really worth it because it's a neat way to learn color changing, and it looks really cool when it's done. So here we go. We take that one little bit of highlight color, make a slip knot, put it on our hook, just like we did with the other ones, and finish off that stitch. So now you are balancing 3 spools and a little length of highlight color. Barbara's having trouble downloading. Okay, well, don't worry. We can we can send you the download instructions later, or if you're on a mobile, make sure that you are fully signed out of the app before you try logging in with the internet on your mobile, and that way it won't force you back into the app. Sometimes signing out doesn't work. You actually have to uninstall the silly app. But if it's giving you trouble, just give us give us till the end of the live stream, and we can sort that out for you afterwards. Etsy app is great. The security around it is fantastic, but it does create trouble for when you're trying to download, because when you try to log in using the internet, which is what you have to do, it tries to force you back into the app, and you don't want that to happen.
A purchase from Ashley J. A pattern purchase.
Do I see one?
Did you see one from Ashley J?
Let me see. Just quickly though, while I'm waiting for that to load up, you're going to work half of a double crochet. You're carrying A. You're also carrying the dark leaf color. So I'm going to get that little tail out of the way. And you're going to work half of a double crochet, because you have to immediately switch back to your dark leaf color. So you finish that stitch with the dark leaf color. You can drop the light color, just sort of roll it up and put it to the side. If you need to, you can put a little stitch marker around it, because this is not a lot of yarn. Let me just grab my stitch markers here. You might even be able to just clip it inside of a stitch marker like that. Put it to the side. You're going to work, so you're dropping it. You don't have to work over top of that color. You are going to double crochet into the next 2 stitches, carrying A with this darker color. And just before we switch back, you work 1/2 of that stitch. You can drop that color, finish it with A, and then before you get going again, just roll it up and make sure everything's nice and neat and tidy. So we've got 2 dark green, 1 light green, 2 dark green, and that is the bottom of that little leaf. And now it's back to A for a few stitches. Let me just get that one going, and let me see here. Yes, we have an Ashley J. We do.
All right.
Thank you, Ashley.
Sweet.
So in between the green and the next time we use a color change, which will be back to the Acorn color, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches in A. So 9 stitches in A, 8 will be full, and the 9th stitch will be a half in A. Dee Marie's Crochet, hello, has been a member for 47 months. Thank you so much. She's got a membership milestone here. Says, I am going to do this any catch up with other projects. This is the time of year where we all start trying to catch up other projects. Finish off whips from the summer, maybe finished even off some things from last year or from last Christmas, stuff we started and thought, I'll finish it next year. That starts happening this time of year too. So there's 8. I'm going to work half of the 9th stitch in A. So again, there's 9 stitches in A between this green and this acorn color, but the 9th stitch is the stitch before the color change, so I only work half. I'm going to engage my acorn color. I am working over top of the A, so I finish the stitch with the acorn color. Don't pull too tightly. You're going to work over top of that little reach. You're working 6 double crochet in the acorn nut color. So there's 2 over top of that little bit of carry. You're still carrying A. There's a double crochet over top of each of the double crochets in that color from the previous row, and then there's 2 more out the other side. And remember, you only work the first half. There we go. The first half of that 6th stitch in your nut color. I'm going to pull it back to the front here and tidy that up. And then you finish it with A, and you'll have, let me just give that a little bit of a tug. Make sure you don't have any of your A color gapping out between your stitches. 6 double crochet in your acorn nut color, and then you're back to A for 9, and you've dropped the acorn color. You don't have to carry it. Just make sure it's all tidy. and you get to the 9th stitch in A, only work half. Give yourself a little bit of a pause. I've got to give myself a little bit more slack on my yarn. Excuse me. And then you're switching back to your other leaf spool, so that other dark color. Finish that stitch with the other leaf color. Don't pull too tightly. Make sure you're working over top of both that reach and your A. Work 2 double crochet, but only work the first half of that second one. Let's keep this over here. And now we're going to engage the other little leaf highlight color. So another little slip knot, not too tight. Finish off that stitch. There we go. You are now going to work over top of both your A and your dark leaf colors. You're going to work the first bit of a double crochet just to establish that color, but you're immediately switching back to your dark green. So I'm going to pull that to the front. You're still working over A. Finish that stitch with your dark green, and then roll up that little bit of green. I'm going to put a little stitch marker around it just to keep it all neat and tidy. And 2 more double crochet. So you're not working over top of your light green, you've dropped it. You're still working over top of the A. I don't want that little, get that tail out of the way. I'll worry about that later. A full double crochet in that color, and a partial double crochet before you finish with that dark green. Make sure nothing's popping out. Finish it with A, and then you've got 3 double crochet in A left in that row. You'll have 40 stitches. Don't forget to make sure that the last stitch is in the top of the turning chains, right there. And then take a moment and just make sure all of your little spools are nice and neat and tidy. Nothing's getting tangled. And you've got the bottom of your first leaf, the bottom of your acorn, and the bottom of your second leaf visible now. So it's a little easier to kind of count stitches and see where your stitches need to go, because now you have the visual reminder. I can hear you giggling, mister.
Because we're discussing, I'm going to pick everyone up in my little clown car, and we're all going to go shopping at the smallest mom and pop yarn shop we could find.
That would be hilarious.
We're all going to go at the same time, though.
All right, I'm going to just give myself some more slack on my yarn here. All right. At the end of row 4, we're on row 4, we're going to chain 2, turn, carefully make sure everything sort of spins around on you. This is why it's nice to get all the color changing, all the big color changing out of the way at the beginning of this project. And for row 5, right-handed, you are now back on the right side of the graph. Left-handed, you are on the left side of the graph. We start with the chain 2 that counts as a double crochet. 1 double crochet into the next stitch, but we only work half of it using A before we switch to the dark green leaf color. So let's pull that up. And we're going to work 2 double crochet in the dark green. Now we're going to carry, remember you're always carrying A. So if you're not using your A or your background color, you are always carrying it, no exceptions, but you only carry the color of that graph inside the confines of the graph image. So this little green only gets carried inside of this particular leaf. This acorn only gets carried inside of the acorn, and this little leaf only gets carried inside of that little leaf. So we don't want to carry any of our other colors all the way through, but you're always carrying A. So we're going to switch to B. Now, always make sure if you have a little kind of carry, or if you've got a yarn that gets pulled up, that you catch it before you finish with your next double crochet, and that's just to hide it. So we're going to double crochet into the next stitch, and I look behind me and I make sure that that little carry is on the inside of my hook before I finish the double crochet, and that way it will get hidden. Hi Vima! Vima's here! Vima! Vima's been a member for 45 months. Thank you so much, Vima. Vima with a membership milestone says, hi Jayda, how are you doing? Love the idea of wall hangings. It's so adorable. You are a genius. Thank you. I'm not. Thank you so much for the wonderful pattern. Thank you for being here. I love wall hangings. This spring when we did one, I enjoyed it so much. I really wanted to do one for fall, but I thought rather than making appliques and doing all of that extra sewing, it would just be fun to work the stitchery or the picture right into it. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of getting back into the spirit of the Fair Isle that we did last year. Work the first half of that stitch, and you're going to switch now to your light green to finish it. You are carrying, so make sure you're working over top of that B just for this one stitch. You're going to finish that stitch with the light green, and remember, you want to look. There's a reach, so I want to make sure that I catch that. I start the double crochet, I work into the next stitch, and I make sure I look behind me and make sure that that little reach is on the inside of my hook before I do my double crochet. There's 3 double crochet in the light green. So you're working over top of your dark green and of course your A. And that third stitch, you only work half of it before you drop it. You switch back to the dark green color. So now you've dropped the light green. I'm just going to wind it up here, stick my little stitch marker on it. I'm done with that. I'm not carrying the light green. I do a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, but I only work half of that next one because I've got to do a color change right away back to A. So before I leave, I want to make sure I keep things as neat as possible, so I'm going to tighten that up. That's that little leaf out of the way. And now I've got 6 stitches in A before I get to my next color, which is the acorn nut. So I worked the first half of the 6th stitch in A before I uncork my nut color and finish that stitch with the acorn nut color. Now, I will have a reach. Always look behind you. Make sure that if you have a reach of yarn, you want to make sure you're working over top of it because you want to hide it. So you're still carrying A. We're going to work, golly, 10 double crochet in our acorn nut color right across. Like I said, the most complicated part of this entire wall hanging is right up front. So if you can make it through the color changing, which really isn't hard if you just take your time, be kind of cognizant of where your stitches are going. Count your stitches at the end of the row if you're new to this, because you want to make sure you always have 40. So that's 10. Make sure too when you're crocheting that you tighten up on, if you're carrying a color for any longer than like 3 stitches, pull on it gently just to make sure that it doesn't want to gap out between the stitches on the back. Work only the first half of that double crochet for the number 10 before you switch back. Anytime you have a stitch just before a color change, you only work half of it in that current color before you switch. I'm going to just clean that up. All right, and now we're back to A for 6. We have dropped the acorn nut color. We are not carrying that. Work the first half of that stitch number 6 in A before you pick up your dark leaf color. Astrid! Hi, Astrid! Astrid has been a member for 2 months. Thank you, Astrid. Astrid has a membership milestone. She says, I've been watching since the beginning. My first obsession on YouTube. Thank you. Not in a misery sort of way. Thank you, Jayda and Mr. InStitches. Mr. InStitches, hide the hammer. Thank you so much, Astrid. Glad you guys could be here. We've been on YouTube for, golly, like 10 years now. It's crazy.
It's 11, actually.
Is it 11?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So double crochet with the dark green, making sure that I grab that little reach, double crochet, but only half of it in the dark green before I get my light green engaged again. So I'm going to just take my little stitch marker off there. I am carrying A throughout. Work that last half of that stitch in the color change. Now I'm going to be carrying both. I've got a little reach back here, so I want to make sure I work over top of it. 3 double crochet in the light green. So I'm just going to unwind that a little bit. Make sure that I carry both of those colors.
Ding, ding.
Ding, ding. Nico! Oh my gosh. Nico, thank you so much. Nico has just gifted another membership. Yarn Lovin' Cowgirl has won it. Congratulations. Thank you, Nico. Work only half of that third stitch before you switch back. I think I want to make that a little bit tighter. There we go. Drop the light green. I'm going to pull that to the front, actually. Switch back to the dark green to finish that stitch. We're still carrying A. Work 2 double crochet in the dark green, but only half of that second one before you pull it to the front. And switch to A. I usually like to get the row finished before I go back and clean up the spools. You've got 2 double crochet in A to finish the row. Remember that last stitch is always in the top of the chain too. That's 40 stitches. And I've got some on the front and some on the back. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter when it's this small. So I'm going to rewind up put all that in there, and I'm going to wind this one up and make sure this one's nice and tight. Typically I like to keep all of my spools on the same side if I'm doing something really large, but when it's this small and you can see everything kind of, you know, literally on the same screen at the same time, it's okay that your spools end up on one side or the other. What's important is making sure that you get the right stitch color in the right place. All right, we have finished row 5. We are heading into row 6. We're about halfway done now, so congratulations if you're still here. I think we're doing actually pretty well. We're going to chain 2 with color A and turn. And when you turn your work, just carefully make sure that everything turns. And if your spools are on one side or the other, just make sure that they're on the side that they finished on in the last row. And you can use them however you need to. I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra slack here from my white yarn. Doing my best to avoid knots.
We gifted 5 memberships earlier.
I'm sorry?
We gifted 5 memberships.
Oh, we did?
Earlier,
I
but,
told.
those names are gone.
Oh, golly. Well, congratulations to anybody who won. Thank you, Mr. InStitches. I didn't know you did that. I am rather tuned into the project here. All right. Row 6. Left-handed, you are starting on the right side of the graph. Right-handed, you are starting on the left side of the graph. We all chain 2 and turn. That chain 2 counts as the first double crochet in the row, and we double crochet into the next stitch with A, but we only work half of it because we immediately switch to our dark green color. So I'm going to grab my dark green color, pick it up, finish that stitch, and row 6 is dark green, light green, dark green, light green, dark green, light green, dark green. So we're kind of alternating for 7 stitches in a row, which means you're only working half of a stitch in the color and then finishing it with the other stitch. So to begin, I'm going to start. I want to make sure that I catch that little bit of a reach. If I have to, I grab it, pull it on the inside of my hook so that when I double crochet over top of it, it will disappear. Start the stitch. I know I need to finish it with the green. This is the busiest color change row in the entire project right here. Same thing, I'm going to finish it with the light green. Now I am working over top of, I got to carry my light green and my dark green as I alternate. I'm always carrying A. I have a little reach here. I want to make sure I get that. So I'm going to double crochet, making sure I catch it. Start half with that one. Switch to that. So now I start a double crochet with the dark green, and I switch to the light green. Start a double crochet with the light green, switch to the dark green, start a double crochet with the dark green, switch to the light green, start a double crochet with the light green, switch to the dark green to finish it, and that's also it for the light green on this side. There's 3 stitches in light green on this little leaf, so that's it. I'm going to wind this up and make sure my little clip is on it. Before I continue, this is just how we keep things organized. There we go. I have a stitch in the dark green left, so I start a stitch in the dark green, but now I'm going to finish it in my background color, and that is that little leaf project part done. So I'm just going to do 1 stitch in A. I'm going to roll up my dark green, clip it in place. So just to recap, that's 2A to start the row, and then we go dark green, light green, dark green, light green, dark green, light green, dark green. And because there's so many color changes there, you're only working the first half of the stitch in the main color before you switch, half the stitch in the main color switch, half the stitch in the main color switch, and you're kind of doing that. So you're alternating back and forth, and that way you get a full stitch in the right color, but you're always set up to have the right color on top of the next stitch. In between there and the acorn, we have 6 stitches in A. So these guys can just sit to the side. And number 6 in A, we only work the first half before we engage the acorn color. So back to the acorn nut. And it's the same as the previous row, 10 stitches with the acorn nut color. If you have a reach at the beginning, make sure you catch it. You're working over top of the A, so you got to carry your A color. And then it's just 10 easy breezy stitches in the acorn nut color. And these 10 acorn nut color stitches will line up directly on top of the acorn nut color stitches from the previous row. As you work that 10th stitch, you're only working the first half, and I like to give that A color a little gentle tug just to make sure that it doesn't want to stick out between any of my other stitches. Switch to A to finish. I'm going to roll that up nice and snug. And then it's 6A before we get to the green, and then that little A, like green, dark green, light green, dark green, light green, dark green, like we just did, we repeat now for the second leaf. All right. Make sure these guys are in the same place. Okay. We start with dark green. There's a little reach, so we want to make sure we get that on the inside of our hook. Start the double crochet and switch to light green. There's a little bit of a reach, so I want to make sure I grab that. It's on the inside of my hook. Start the double crochet and switch. The whole time you're carrying A. So A just kind of quietly runs along underneath all of this stitch work, just minding its own business, waiting until it gets needed again. Dark green, light green, dark green, light green. Hello, Dawn! Dawn's been a member for 69 months. Holy smokes. Thank you, Dawn. Dawn has a membership milestone, and she says, cute wall hanging, Jayda. Thank you, Dawn. It will be quite cute when we've got it finished. Very eager to have this one alongside the other one. This one might actually be a gift. So that was it. I only have 3 stitches in that light green, so I'm going to just pull that light green to the front and roll it up nice and neat and tidy. It's perfectly okay to pause while you're crocheting. It's very important actually when you're doing a lot of color changes because it helps you keep everything neat and tidy, keep track of things. You don't want it unraveling on you. And I'm just going to pull on the A a little bit. I'm going to start that last double crochet in the dark green. Finish it. Let's make sure this isn't in the way. There we go. Finish with A. And 2 more double crochets to finish the row in A. So there we go. And that was the busiest color change row in the entire project. That was row 6. Row 6 is now finished. So pat yourself on the back if you're at the end of that row. You've got easy peasy ahead of you. It's a lot easier from here on out. We're going to chain 2 and turn with color A. We've got 2 or 3 more rows left on the little leaves, and then they'll be done. And then a couple more rows left on the acorn. We will be switching to the acorn top cap color in 1 more row. So we've got 1 more row of the bottom nut color, and then we'll be switching to the acorn cap color. A little sip of tea. All right. We have 1 extra stitch in A at the beginning of row 7. So we're on row 7. Right-handed, you are on the right-hand side. Left-handed, you are on the left-hand side of the graph. We start with a double crochet in A in the next stitch, remember, because the chain 2 counts, and another double crochet, which we start with A in the 3rd stitch, but we only work half of it before we switch to the dark green leaf color. So I'm going to unravel that and make sure I'm going to pull that up. And looks like I may have accidentally pulled, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull this out. I may have accidentally pulled my light green underneath one of my stitches. I don't want that, so I'm just going to take that out and redo it. So this green should have ended right here. There we go. Got that out of the way. Ding, ding, ding. And then I work the first half of that. And then I finish with that and I switch to my white. And I finish the row. So pardon me, just want to make sure I'm doing this all right. It's perfectly okay to go back and fix things if you need to. That's what makes it easier to continue down the road. Teddy! Hi, Teddy! Goodness me! Thank you, Georgiana, I should say. Picked up a couple patterns. Thank you so much. Teddy with a membership milestone. Teddy's been a member for 63 months. Thank you so much, Teddy. Teddy's celebrating her 60th birthday. Holy cow. Happy birthday. How fun is that? Congratulations. 60 is a big and a fabulous milestone. All of my friends who are in their 60s say they love it. So I guess there's that. Happy birthday. Got a few birthday babies in the crowd today. And again, thank you to Georgiana for picking up a few patterns. All right, back to row 7 on track. I'm going to start that 3rd stitch in A. And now I'm going to get my dark green color engaged again. So make sure you're following along with the graph. If you have a reach, when first time you use a color in every row, you're going to have a reach. It's either going to be long or it's going to be sort of short, or maybe sometimes you have to crochet over top before you, like you may have to carry your color a little bit, so keep an eye on that. I could probably carry that, and by that I mean this. So if I go back to my second stitch in this first, so we're in row 7. Because my last use of a color change was right here where I'm about to use my A, I might want to actually pick up that color and work over top of it for one stitch. And I'll show you what I mean. So I pick up that color from behind and I work over top of it. So I'm carrying it for like half a stitch. And that just ensures that I don't end up with any long or strange like gaps or pulls that I can't cover over. So I'm going to finish that stitch with the B, or that dark green color. Get my little acorn out of the way. Always pause and make sure things are organized. Okay, I have switched to dark green. The dark green is the 4th stitch, and I want to make sure that I carry the light green, because the light green I need after I work half of the stitch in the dark green, but I want to make sure I pick up the dark green, or the light green I should say, and carry it, just pulling it up to make sure that I don't end up needing to pull it over top of an existing stitch. We're still working over A. Remember, you're always carrying A no matter what. I'm going to finish that stitch with the light green. Only one stitch in light green, so I work over top of both dark green and color A. I work half of that, and then I finish it with the dark green. Oops, I'm not even looking at my own graph. I'm getting excited here, guys. Sorry. Okay, you're all wondering, what is she doing? There's 2 stitches in dark green before we do the first change. So I want to make sure I'm working over top of my light green. I have to carry it. The light green is only used in the middle, pardon me, so everybody who caught that, awesome. And now there's one light green stitch in the middle. I only work half of it though before I switch back to green. And then it's green for 2, dark green for 2. I only work the first half of that second one before I switch back to A. Okay, so I'm just going to finish that with a little bit of A. So 2 dark green, 1 light green, 2 dark green. So I apologize if that got a little confusing there. Almost done with the color changes on the leaves. So I'm going to roll that back. And snap that back in place. There we go. There are 7 stitches in A between this leaf and the next time we use the acorn color. So I'm just going to pause and make sure that I don't have anything getting tangled here. There we go. Oh my goodness, done! Thank you so much for picking up the pattern. So there's the first 6. There's stitch number 7 in A. We work the first half of it before we switch back to the nut color. We've got one more row of the acorn nut color, and it's 10 stitches just like the previous row. So we're working over top of A. If I've got any kind of a reach, which I do, I have just a little itty bitty one, I want to make sure that I grab that bit of the acorn color, make sure it's on the inside of my hook before I start double crocheting, and that just makes sure that it's tucked up underneath the stitches and you don't get any like funny reaching on the other side. 10 double crochet in that pretty little acorn nut color, and that's it for the acorn nut color before we start using the cap color. So So 10 stitches in the nut color. I work the first half of that 10th stitch in the nut. I'm going to pull gently on A to make sure that it's not gapping out underneath any of my stitches. Finish that stitch with A, and because that was the last time we need to use the nut color, I can snip my yarn. Give myself quite a long tail because I want to be able to weave it in and make sure it doesn't unravel. And I can get that right out of the way. 7 double crochet now. I'll weave in my tails much later. 7 double crochet in A before we repeat that little 2 dark green, 1 light green, 2 dark green stitch pattern for the second leaf. And because we are working over top of an existing color, you want to make sure you reach down and you carry the color that you're going to need. So grab it, pull it up over top of your hook so that you work over top of it. That way you won't end up with a reach on the wrong side of the stitch. Finish that stitch with the darker green. And now we're doing the same thing with the light green. I got to make sure that I carry this because I need it after it was last used. So I pick it up, I pull it over top of my hook. There we go. Because I need to double crochet with the dark green. DJ! Hi DJ! Thank you so much for picking up the pattern. I'm pretty sure that's Deborah. Work half of it. Actually, I should say we're working the whole thing. Oh, I want to make sure I'm carrying. Look at that. I forgot to grab A. Always move slowly. So A, I need to carry you. I need to start this stitch. I want to make sure I'm carrying the light green because I don't need it yet, and it's back. It finished after I needed it for this row. So it finished after in the previous row before I needed it in this row. So now, as you can see, I've got everything picked up and pulled. So I'm working over top of those. All my colors are carried. I'm using the right color for these 2 stitches. There we go. Now I can finish that second stitch with the light green. The light green is exactly where I needed it because I was carrying it to the middle. 1 stitch in light green. Only work first half of that. And then back to the dark green. I can drop the light green. I'm still working over top of A. 2 stitches in dark green. Can put A to B to the back. Finish that with the A or the background color, and then I've got 3 stitches in A to finish the row. 40 stitches in total. So you still have 40 stitches. Last stitch is worked into the top of the chain 2 as usual. There we go. And I'm going to just pause and make sure nothing is getting tangled. Roll up all my yarn. There we go. So everything's neat and tidy. We finished with the acorn nut color, so I snipped my yarn. Leave yourself like 15 centimeters, 6 inches or so of a tail so you can weave it in and it won't want to weave it undo on you. We'll be engaging our acorn cap color now for row 8. We're almost done with our 2 little leaves, so that'll be done soon too. I'm going to give myself a little more A color here. All right. Here we go. Chain 2 with A and turn. So we are now on row 8. Row 8, we're going to be engaging our cap color. We've got 2 more rows left in the little green leaves, and then they're done. And if you are working right-handed, you are looking at the left-hand side of the graph for row 8. If you're left-handed, you're looking at the right-hand side. And this is still a mirror image row, so it's not too worrisome. Always skip that first stitch because your chain 2 counts as a double crochet. We need 4 double crochet in A to begin. So the first 3 are full A, and then we want to make sure, I can demonstrate this again, because I'm going to need my secondary color after I last used it. So I don't need it here, I actually need it here. Because it ends here, I want to carry it. So when I start this next stitch with A, I want to make sure that I get underneath my color, that I'm working over top of it, just to carry it. I only have to carry it for like half a stitch before I need to engage again. So there's 4 double crochet in A before you switch to your dark green color. And then it goes dark green, light green, dark green. So that's it. Carry A, double crochet with the dark green, pause and finish it with the light green. We're almost done with the light green. This is it for the light green. Double crochet with the light green, but only half. Finish that stitch with the dark green. You don't have to carry the light green, only 1 stitch in dark green before you switch back to A. And now we're going to tighten up the dark green because we only need it for 1 more row. We're done with the light green, so you can snip off, give yourself a 6-inch tail or so, but that's it for that. And now there are 6 stitches in A between A and the new color for our acorn. So here we go. So I start the 6th stitch in A, and I am going to engage my new color. So I've got my acorn cap going. Start with a slip knot, not too tight, not too loose either. Finish off that stitch with the new color, and I'm carrying A. I want to double crochet 14 stitches. So it's not just 10, it's 14 in the new color. To establish the cap, I'll weave in my little tails later. And you're carrying A the whole time.
Question from Ashley.
Yes. Jayda takes a pause. Jayda, are you crocheting over your yarns to hide the color switching on the inside so you don't have to weave the strands in? So the little tails that are left, you can weave in later, but as you're changing colors, you have to change colors and work over top of the color you're not using, but that you're carrying, so that it doesn't show through. As you can see, there's nothing, the white doesn't show through these stitches. If you don't change colors, you will see it on the outside of the piece. And if you manage to keep all of your color changing only on one side, that's not a big deal. It would maybe be on the back, like if you might see sort of on some knitting. But the problem with a project like this is that it's easy to kind of forget and move your spools to one side or the other. And if you're not always working over top of the yarn you're carrying, you'll end up with it showing through to one side or the other, and that just ends up being, it sort of interrupts the imagery. You don't want to see the carried color. So you're always working over top of the color you're carrying, and that way it's exactly where you need it when you need to start using it again. Otherwise, it would look like this. It would be running across the outside of your stitches, and that's really messy. And it interrupts the look of the image. So you want to carry colors. You're crocheting over top. Well, hello, Susan. Thank you so much. Susan has just gifted a membership, and congratulations to Catherine, who won it. Welcome back. All right, that's 14 stitches in the new color, the acorn cap color. I work at the first half of that 14th stitch. I'm just going to wind this up. before I switch back to A. And of course, you want to make sure that your carried color isn't gapping. So you just tug on it gently, make sure it's not showing through before you switch back. You don't have to carry this. You're done with it for this row, so it just stays where it is. You've got 6 stitches in A before you go back to your green. And then you're repeating the same little green, dark green, light green, dark green pattern on this side as you did over here. Because we are going to be using the dark green later than it was when we last used it, we got to make sure that we carry it. So I want to make sure it's over top of my hook when I get my hook in there, so that when I crochet, I'm hiding that yarn and I'm carrying it. So there's the first half of that stitch. Now I can use my dark green by finishing that stitch. There we go. Carrying A. 1 stitch in the dark green. You only work the first half before you pick up the light green and finish it. There's a little reach there, so make sure you get underneath it. You're carrying both the dark green and your color A when you work this last stitch in the light green. That's it for the light green, my dears. It is done. Finish that stitch with the dark green, and then 1 stitch with dark green. You only work half though before you finish it with A, and that gives you 4 stitches left in the row in A. I need a little bit more slack on my A here. Despite my best efforts, I am getting a knot, so thank goodness I'll have time to rewind this at the end. All right, 4 stitches in A. I am going to snip my light green yarn. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to give myself about a 15 centimeter tail, 6 inches or so. That way I can weave it in later. And when I say weave in, so for example, if you want to weave in some of your tails, like, you know, as you work on this project, I recommend it because it does keep things neat and tidy. I would thread up a tail and just, especially in longer stretches where there's a lot of yarn, run it underneath all of the same colored stitches. Try not to pull too tightly, because you don't want to pull anything out of alignment. And then I would double back over top of a loop, and now I'm using wool. Wool is very grabby, so this is not going to unravel, but if you're using something really slippery, then make sure you weave it in back and forth a few times. There we go. So there's my tail woven in up top. Same thing down here. I would sort of like skip up to this longer row of color like this, and then double back over top of a loop and go through the whole row of the same colored stitches of the color I'm weaving in. And I'm trying to make sure that I like to grab that tail and make sure that I don't pull it out of alignment. So there, that's the tails woven in on the bottom of the acorn. And you would do the same thing. You would just sort of try to keep the colors underneath similar colors. The leaves, the little leaves are pretty thick. So if you've got this going underneath, like this one can go underneath all of that row of stitches. It won't show underneath the light green because it's a little thicker through here. So weaving in your tails as you go is a good thing to do. All right. We've got, this was row 8, we've got a few more rows left to go. Easy peasy, chain 2, turn. So we are gradually finishing off all of our little color changes here. For row 9, we're on row 9. Right-handed, you are on the right side of the graph. Left-handed, you are on the left side of the graph. And we are going to start with 5 stitches in A. The first one is already accounted for. It's the chain 2. So here we go. If you're working row 5, I've got to give myself a little more slack here on my yarn. Need to find out there's a knot. I feel like there's a knot in here somewhere. All my own doing, I am sure. Jayda needs a Swift. There we go.
You remember where to go to enable purchases and gifting and all that?
Yes, in the live chat, if you see a membership get gifted, a little thing will pop up saying allow gifts on this channel, and if you haven't already done that, you'll see that. Otherwise, you go into the membership, you click on the membership tab of the channel that you want to be able to get gifts on, and there should be
Watch the chat.
Yes, I will watch the chat. I want to make sure that I don't get this too tangled. Oh my goodness, so Mr. InStitches just gifted 5 memberships, and there's also a membership milestone here from Louise. Louise has been a member for 69 months. Goodness gracious, thank you, Louise. Louise says, good afternoon, Jayda and all. I hope to start my own channel later this month. Congratulations. I will feature many of my makes, of which many of them are Jayda patterns. Thank you, Louise. Hey, good luck with that. Good luck with making your own channel. It is really fun to do. A lot of work, but a lot of fun. Mr. InStitches has gifted some memberships. Congratulations to Mandy, Kathy, Ellen, Pam, and Bobby for winning. And if you haven't already turned on Allow Gifts, you should see that little Allow Gifts thing pop up in the live chat if you haven't clicked on it. So if you do have gifting allowed on the channel, you won't see it. And there's Summer. Summer's been a member for 69 months. Thank you, Summer. Holy cow. Summer says, my plan this long weekend was to sort craft stuff and whips. That has not happened. I did buy more books and Halloween home decor, though. Well, I mean, at least you got one fun thing done. Yes, I think the best laid plans for a long weekend often go awry. And that's pretty common. I think there were a bunch of things I was thinking about doing this weekend. It's already Monday, so I guess it's not going to happen. I will be unraveling this beautiful mess after the live stream today, so I may still be doing that by this time tomorrow. We'll see. All right.
Ask everyone if the sound has improved.
Has the sound improved? Mr. InStitches wants to know. Yes, no, maybe? All right, just to kind of get back to the thing, we need to carry our green a little bit. We've got 1 stitch to work in A where we carry the dark green. So before you start that double crochet, pick up the green and double crochet over top of it, but you're only working half before you switch to the green. Carry your A, you've got 1 double crochet in the green, but you're only even working half of that before you switch back to A again. That is the top of the little leaf. You are now done with the green, the dark green on this leaf. So I'm just going to get a couple stitches in there. You can disconnect that spool, leave yourself a tail for weaving in later, and that's 1 whole leaf done. In between this green stitch and the next dark brown or cap for your acorn, you've got, what is that, about 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 stitches. 9 stitches in A. Before we switch back, so it's we're closing in on the end of all the color changing for our imagery here. So because we need the brown or the acorn cap color later than we last used it, I need to make sure I carry it until I need it. So it was dropped here. I need to carry it for a few stitches before I need it again. So I've only worked 7 stitches. I'm working 9. So I need to so I start the stitch, I get my hook underneath that brown color so that I end up working over top of it, because I'm carrying it for a couple of stitches before I need it. So I work the first half of my 9th stitch using my A color. I switch to my Acorn cap color, and now I work the Acorn cap color for 10 stitches, and I'm carrying A.
Did you explain how the images can be swapped out?
Yes, yes, I did right at the very beginning. I explained that, and so if you need to come back a little later and watch that little bit again, you're more than welcome to do so. Also, if you pick up the pattern, there is an entire file. One of the files in the wall hanging pattern is all on substitutions and how to do that. And there are some helpful graphs in there showing you how to substitute, say, this one in lieu of the maple leaf or the pumpkin, or any of the 20 stitch by 11 row Fair Isle style graphs that we did last year. It's basically just counting in the 10 stitches, so that 20 stitch graph sits in the middle of a 40 stitch repeat, which is what the wall hanging is. So it's like 10 stitches, and then the graph repeat would start, and then the 10 stitches finishes. And the insert instructions in the wall hanging really explain that, but basically that's all you're doing. You're working across 10 stitches, and in this case we're using the little leaf. So 10 stitches, and then the substitute graph pattern would start. So then 20 stitches, and then you switch back to this one for 10. So it's kind of like you just sort of count in. If you're looking at the graph on the screen, you would count to stitch number 10. You would start with the substitution. That would be the next 20 stitches, and then at stitch 30, or I should say 31, you would start back to this current graph again, and that would be the other leaf. So it's 10, 20, 10, 10, 20, 10, 10, 20, 10, remembering that the 20 stitches in between are that graph substitution. So a little bit of counting, but that's how it works. Pretty easy. So once you've done 10 stitches in your Acorn cap color, you work the 10th stitch, half of it in the cap color, before you snap back to A. Oh my goodness gracious.
That was scary.
We just had a bird hit the window. Hope that bird is okay. Drop the Acorn cap color, and it's white for, what is that, 9 stitches again before we get back to finishing the other little leaf. I hope that bird is okay. That was quite a pong.
Was that the front or the back?
Must have been the front. They're all yelling up the front, so I guess they're either laughing at their friend who hit the window, or they're... So I need a little bit more A slack on the A yarn. Okay. There's 8. So I need to just carry this dark green for 1 stitch before I need it. So I'm going to unravel it a bit. Start that stitch in A. Make sure I'm catching the green so that I carry it, just so I don't have a little reach. Start it in A. Finish it with the dark green. Now I'm carrying A. Work that 1 stitch in the dark green before I switch back to A. That is it for the dark green, so that can go aside. My little tails I'll weave in later. And the rest of the row is in A. We finish that row with 5 double crochet in A. So very easy peasy the next couple of rows. It's basically all A with 1 itty bitty little bit of the Acorn color. So I'm just going to make sure I've got enough A pulled out to complete that. So you should have only one spool left engaged, and that will be the Acorn cap color. Everything else, you've snipped your tails. You can weave in your tails at the end of today's live stream before we get to tomorrow. Chain 2 with A and turn. And this is where the left and right-handedness becomes apparent. So this is row 10. Right-handed, you're on the left-hand side of the graph, going from left to right. If you're working left-handed, you're on the right-hand side of the graph, working from right to left. And the first, if you're right-handed, the first 22 stitches in this row are in A. If you're working left-handed, or I should say the first 22 stitches. If you're working left-handed, the first 19 stitches in the row are in A. Then we break for one stitch in the dark brown or the acorn cap color, and then the rest of the row is A. So 22 stitches. I think it's 22. Might got my math wrong. Let me count it up here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22. Yep, I'm right. Why do I second guess myself? Why do we do that? 22 stitches in A if you're working right-handed, 19 stitches in A if you're working left-handed. We break for one little measly stitch in the dark brown before we go back to A for the rest of the row. Need a little bit more slack. I will have this unraveling nicely by tomorrow, I promise. I'm going to employ my husband as a Swift briefly after today's live stream. There we go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Another 12 to go. Now, if you're coming up on your acorn cap, you want to look at the last place you used your acorn cap color. Here it is here. And you want to make sure that you carry it. So I'm just coming up on where I last used the acorn cap color. And of course, I still have a few stitches to go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. So I have 5 stitches to go before I need it. So I want to make sure that I carry it. So I grab that and I put it over top of my needle or my hook so that I grab and carry. So now I'm working over top of that dark brown color so that I'm carrying it so that it is where I need it when I need to use it next. And that should be for row or stitch number 23. Because I'm right-handed, it'll be stitch number 20 if you're left-handed. Double check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22. So I work the first half of that stitch in A, switch briefly to the dark brown color, work one stitch in the dark brown color, and then switch quickly back to A. And this can just stay right where it is. I'll just roll that up. And now the rest of the row is A. So very easy peasy row. And the next row is exactly the same. You're just making sure that you put the brown little, it's basically the little stem on your acorn. That stitch is going to sit directly on top of the stitch you just made. I'm going to get myself some more slack on my A. And finish the row. Now, this was a slightly longer live stream than most, but it's okay. It's a holiday Monday. We are just getting the project going. Tomorrow we'll be up and running, and we will be directing people back to today's live stream. So if people are kind of just dropping in tomorrow and starting, we're going to make sure that the little playlist, it'll be a little mini playlist, will be established in the description box of tomorrow's live stream and today's live stream. So if down the road you kind of find one of these episodes, but you know you need like number 2 or number 3 or number 4, we'll have the playlist.
We have another question from Ashley.
Sure. Hang on. Let me just untangle my yarn a little bit here. I want to make sure that I don't have too many knots. There we go. Okay, Ashley says, Jada, did you see my question? I'm not sure. Would you consider making different banners for holidays, birthdays in the month to make a set for different holidays as a kit? Mr. InStitches, can you ask Jada? Yeah, like this one, you mean? Because that would be a great little idea. Absolutely.
Well, we do have a lot of Fair Isle style images that can be incorporated in multiple
Yep.
styles.
I think one that says happy birthday would be great. One that says Merry Christmas would be great. I agree. I like that. I should see what I can do. All right. So I am chaining 2 and turning. We are now on row 11. So right-handed, you're on the right-hand side of the graph. You're working right to left. Left-handed, reverse, you're on the left-hand side, working left to right. And it's all basically the same. You want to make sure you put an A stitch on top of every single A stitch. You've got 1 stitch in the cap color that's sitting on top, directly atop of the stitch that you made previously. So it's the reverse. If you're right-handed, you've got 19 stitches in A, and then you switch for the brown, and then you're 22 stitches in A to finish. And left-handed, it's the reverse for you. 22 stitches in A to start, 1 in the brown, and then 19 to finish. And we are on the home stretch of our little image, the little image part of this live stream's Welcome Fall wall hanging. Tomorrow we are going to tackle the word fall. And I encourage you at the end of today's live stream to take a moment to weave in all your tails and kind of sort of make yourself all neat and tidy in order to get to the work we're going to do tomorrow. We are going to be done with all of these spools. You're only going to need 1 spool tomorrow. If you even want to bother using a spool, you don't necessarily have to, because we're only going to be using the 1 color to make the word fall, unless you want to get super interesting and do every letter a different color. That's entirely up to you. Just changing briefly colors here to make sure that I get my 1 stitch in the cap color. I'm going to catch that little tiny itty bitty reach. I'm going to finish it in A, and now that's it. I'm going to cut myself a 15 centimeter or a 16-inch tail, and that is it for the color changing. There we go, and I'll just weave that in later on. Looks neat and tidy. I'm going to finish this row with A, and then we've got row 12, which is just a divider row in the pattern, and it's all A. So all 40 stitches are the A color, which is great, because I'm going to need to pause for tomorrow and make sure I wind this beautiful ball of wool into a proper looking spool so that it unwinds a little easier for me tomorrow and I don't end up with any knots. I like the idea too, Sandra. I think that's great. Ashley's got the right idea. I was eager to do more wall hangings because really they're such an easy way to add a little bit of decor on theme for your home. And they don't have to be big. They can be small, like this one. This is what I would consider a mini. It's not micro mini, but it's mini. And it's really fun and it's pretty and it's easy to fold up and put away when you want to change your decor. So it's nice decor that doesn't take up a lot of space for storage. I've just finished row 11. That is it for all the color changes. And now row 12, chain 2, turn, and it's just double crochet in A all the way across. All 40 stitches are A. We've got our leaf, our acorn, and our little leaf going. I'm going to find myself just enough slack in the A to get me through this next row before we pause and adjourn until tomorrow. And it's just got one more. Let's see if I can do one more row. One more row. One more row before I get a complete and utter mess of a rat's nest of a knot here. I'm going to be unwinding this for the rest of the day. And there we go. All right, here we go. Chain 2, that's 1, 2, turn, double crochet in every stitch all the way across with A. So all 40 stitches in row 12, no matter which handedness you are, left or right, doesn't matter which direction you're going, every single one of those 40 stitches is the same color. It's your background color. And we will call it at the end of row 12 of our wall hanging for today. So a gigantic thank you to everybody who has joined us today and has started this project along with us or is just hanging out. We just love your company. Thank you so much. Humongous thank you to everybody who's picked up a copy of the pattern. This pattern, along with all of our other Fair Isle style graph patterns, will be on sale all week. It's a little sneaky sale to sort of welcome the fall. And thank you to everybody who's picked up a pattern. Thank you so much to everybody who's a member, who's given us a little super chat or membership milestone today. I'm so glad you guys are out there and you're making use of your membership perks. Those are really fun. Thank you, members who took part in the poll this morning to choose this little acorn pattern. And just a reminder that the written pattern includes the original graph, the one that you saw, this one here with the little maple leaf in the middle. And it also includes instructions on how to sub in any other graph image you might like, including specific instructions for the acorn and our pumpkin, because that one really suits this wall hanging too. And I know a lot of you expressed interest in adding a pumpkin, so we were happy to include that as well. So gigantic thank you to everybody who's picked that up, and we will see you guys tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern to continue with our wall hanging. It'll be part 2. We'll be working on the word fall. I will not have a gigantic mess of a yarn barf here. I promise. Gonna get that all organized for tomorrow. I do love the way this looks and feels though. I don't know, are you guys like me? Do you actually enjoy unwinding yarn knots? Or is that just kind of me? I actually don't mind. I find it kind of cathartic to get a knot undone. And I've got just enough of this little Barbara's still having issues. Barbara, sweetie, we will look after you as soon as the stream is over. So hang on and I will take care of that. No worries. No worries at all. If you guys ever buy something from our shop and you have problems with the download, it is not you, it is Etsy. So you just let us know and we will help you out. No big deal, and we are always happy to help. Ginny finds it relaxing to undo barf while she watches television. Yes, I love it. I actually kind of find it therapeutic. It looks like a mess, and then like you get a little bit undone, and you're like, oh yeah. And then you find like another little piece, and you get that, and you're like, oh yeah. I can see where this is. Yeah. Yeah, I will get this. I will get this sorted. No problem. Goodness me. Row 12 is all A. You've got 40 stitches in every row. Today we covered our little leaf and acorn imagery. So that's how you work the imagery into it. Remember, if you are subbing in a different one, it's 10 stitches of the Welcome Fall wall hanging pattern. Then you switch to the 20 stitches of the graph pattern. And then you switch back to the last 10 stitches in the row of the wall hanging pattern. And then it's 10 stitches of the wall hanging pattern, switch to the 20 stitches of the graph, and then back to the last 10 stitches of the wall hanging pattern, and so on. And that's how you sub in any one of those images that we did last year. Remember that your row 1 of your graph pattern is sits in, so there's one extra row of just plain A in our wall hanging before you get into what would be row 1 of the regular graph pattern. So the regular graph is 11 rows by 20 stitches. And so just think of it like you've got one extra row of double crochet in A before you start the pattern repeats. And just look, if you've picked up the pattern, just look at the instructions on that and the little graph that we included, and that should help explain things. And I've got, all I need to do is one more stitch with the A, and I've got enough to do that. There we go. All right, and I will finish with this giant mess. I will organize it, rewind it, and we will be back in action tomorrow. Dears, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a long one, but it's a holiday Monday, so a couple hours of crafting with your friends. I mean, what more could you ask for to finish off the summer? We have gotten started on our wall hanging. I am so excited about this. We are going to get into the fall part, so we will be doing this section tomorrow, the word fall. You can use any color you want for that. I used a really pretty variegated on this one, but I'm going to switch it up to, I think I might use a nice rich mulberry tomorrow, because I've got this lovely wool I'm using. But this is the section we're doing tomorrow. So we'll be doing the word fall. And then Wednesday we will be doing the word welcome. And on Thursday we'll be putting on the little border and the tabs. And it'll be all wrapped up for Friday, which is going to be Calendar Blanket Friday. So our new Calendar Blanket video will be dropping on Friday at around 1 o'clock Eastern PM on Friday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this week, 11 a.m. each day, 11 a.m. Eastern. Come on back here and we will continue work on our Welcome Fall wall hanging. This is looking so cute. And I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am so far. I'm going to take an hour to unwind this beautiful mess of wool. I'm going to rewind it on my yarn winder, and I'll be back in action tomorrow with a nicely neat and tidied up cake. Promise. I'll even show it to you. Have a great evening, everybody. If you've got questions on the pattern you picked up, don't hesitate to give us a quick message at the shop. We're eager to help. That's what we love to do here. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Anything you want to add, Mr. InStitches?
We'll address anyone's issues ASAP.
Absolutely. Yes, I'll be popping into the shop immediately after the live stream finishes, so I'll see you all there soon. Have a great night. Have a great afternoon. We'll see you all tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern for part 2 of our Welcome Fall Wall Hang.